Johnson, and this is Focus on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, Mount Nimba to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Pocondre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Talk about home affairs, in diaspora, current affairs, reliable information, history, talking about culture, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday. Focus on.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another session of Focus on Liberia. On the marketplace, I am your host, Gabriel Carter. My co-host in the studio here with me, Jimmy Eastman. We've been away for a little bit of time, but we are glad to resume and do what we do on here, which is to be more analytical, to be more in-depth, to talk about everything that is finance, business, and economics related on the continent of Africa, but more specifically in Liberia. Today, we are going to be talking about the budget. We're going to try to make sense of the national draft budget that was just submitted. As you're aware, there's a little bit of a qualm in terms of the process in which it was submitted. We don't want to get into that qualm. That's politics. We want to stick on the analytical side and dig more into the numbers. So that's what we're going to do today. So wherever you are, take a time to share or grab a cup of coffee, palm wine, a shot, whatever you drink, and for the next hour and a half. And as we go through this, hopefully we will have enough time to actually talk about the MCC scorecard as well. But that's what we're going to do for you today. As always, as we say, bring your questions, bring your opinions, but most importantly, we want to hear your perspectives as well, because that's one of the most important things. All right. So take your time and join us. Jimmy, thank you for joining me and to go through this budget. I know before we join on here, you and I were just we're wallowing in our sorrows and how frustrated we are with the budget and everything that surrounds it and what it means for the country. Hopefully we're able to put some of this out today and make sense of what is happening. But again, thank you for taking the time for joining me. What have you?
Thank you. It's always I feel a duty to talk about our beloved nation,
right,
and how we can analyze and help diagnose what we need to do.
Yeah.
But it is unfortunate that we see that we still heading in a direction for many, in many areas where it's unsustainable.
Yeah.
Unsustainable. So
yeah.
Why are we continuing this avenue? Yeah. And also there areas where as little as we put into that area, that sector, it will not be sufficiently impactful. Mm-hmm. So, in other words, we're not going very far. We're not going very far.
Yeah.
And it's hurtful. Um, but that is the nature of the beast. So we
Well,
don't see changes from year to year. We don't see much changes in how we prioritize uh, our budget and expenditure.
yeah. And Jimmy, I don't think that's the nature of the beast. I just think that is the nature of, well, you're right in essence, meaning that's the nature of the beast in Liberia. That is
Yeah.
not the nature of the beast in other countries,
Hmm.
especially those that are around us, right? In as much that those other countries have qualms within the government, there's internal ruffling. They are very intentional about the natural progression in terms of gradation in development in those countries, and we can see it for ourselves. For those of us who travel around the region, we can see those. It just some when it comes to Liberia, there's this kind of a, as someone put it yesterday, that we're kind of stuck. We're not in the 24th century. We're not in the 21st century yet. We are still on the tail end of it, from every aspect of it, from the developmental side as well as every measurable economic indicator you can think about. And that is a tragedy, especially for a country that's been out of war about 20, what is it, 20, 21 years now? Yep, 21 years since we came out of war. There should have been some signs of, a natural, um, progression in terms of the development, how we're developing in our country. But, still, every sector is still fragmented. Every services is yet to be, there's not a sense of, you look at the country, there's no sense of direction. And like you rightly pointed out, if you look at the budget, it kind of dictates exactly what happens in our country. And this draft budget, as many of us hoped that it would have been something different from the previous, it is nothing different from the previous. Matter of fact, just continue along that trend, or maybe even worse. So, um, before we jump into that, do you have any thoughts?
No, I mean, we can make after we give an overview maybe of the budget,
Mhm.
and then give our whatever critique we have or
Yeah,
suggestion.
yeah,
Then maybe then we can give recommendations
yeah. Okay.
to.
Okay, so
Mhm.
without further ado, let's jump into this. Um, and so let's first look at this is probably one of my favorite part of to read of the whole budget, which is pretty much the macroeconomic outlook for this year or the year to come. They kind of projected as well, for this year budget, where the economy has grown by 0.7%, which is dismal, but somewhat good. Um, so they're forecasted to grow about, again, this forecast is coming from the World Bank to grow about 5.9% on average. Um, they've also, I think another chart we will get to, the forecasted to from 5.9%, it goes up to 6% in 2026, and then it remains flat for 3 years straight at 6% up until 2029. So that is something that we need to worry about, especially for an economy that's supposed to be growing. We don't want to stay flat, but whatever those indicators are that are actually driving um, the the growth, or whatever level of indicator or measurable indicator we can trigger to make sure that we actually inch that up a little bit. That's something we need. That's the work of the Minister of Finance. So this one, their overview is that, there's growth forecast in agriculture and fisheries sector, 5.2%, um, and they give a lot of indication in terms of growth in various sectors. So this is usually my favorite part. They also talk about the mining sector forecast to a record growth of 8.5%. Um, so that's on that. I want to leave it on that. What do you think about, especially the projection, and especially the mining sector projection?
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Let me mute for a minute.
Yeah.
Will you? I got a
Okay. So while Jimmy is actually Jimmy, you back?
sorry. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Okay.
The people seem to call you at the worst time, right?
Yeah, we all get that. So
Anyway.
yeah, as I was saying, so and the reason,
Oh my god.
yeah, I know. So the reason why I wanted to stick on the agriculture part is because for so long everybody has pitched this growth in agriculture, and now we have a budget that is projecting that there will be a 8.5% growth, which is considered a record. Um, Based on what you have seen so far in the country, what do you think that what do you think is driving that growth in the agriculture
Okay.
sector that you're talking
Okay.
about?
Good. I would like to touch the agriculture, but let's look at the percentages so far, right?
Hmm.
Okay. Well, out of a 851.76 million dollar budget,
Yeah,
we find that the public administration is about 39%.
yeah. Hold on, let me see if I can pull that up here.
Education is
Yep,
13.5.
yep,
The health sector, though is reflected 85.8 million, is only about 10%, and mostly for employee compensation.
yep,
Security and rule of law is about 14%. And agriculture, which is critical for growth for
yeah,
us,
yeah,
we see it growing from 6.78 million in 2024 to 15.2
yeah.
in
There's
2025,
2025.
which
Yeah,
is a positive shift.
right.
However,
Hmm.
this is still below the required level for a transformative impact on food and security in the country, and also for economic diversification. So, in other words, we should have cut down more money somewhere like public administration and put enough money in something like agriculture to make an impact. Because when you don't do it right, then you pretty much do nothing at all.
Yeah,
So as much as we see growth, we're happy that there's growth there, but it's not enough.
yeah,
We have to convince our people, if we don't do enough, especially something as critical as agriculture, you're not going to have the desired impact that you want. So either do it right or don't do it, you know? So we're I think I think what we should have done, what is it?
hmm.
Tighten your belt,
That's
tighten your
very true.
belt in some
Yeah,
areas so we can see agriculture take off, because this will provide food security, jobs, and future for our people. Percy, welcome.
Percy,
Thank
thank you
you.
for joining.
Thank you.
We were
Thank you.
expecting you
Thank you.
early, but I know a librarian, you always be a librarian, my man.
Librarian, stand
That's
up now.
funny. That's
No, but on a
that's true.
on a serious note, thank you for taking the time to join us. We just got started. As our Jimmy and I were talking about, we're doing it. We just did the overview of the macroeconomic overview, and one thing that stuck out to me, which I just asked Jimmy, was that there's a record growth in agriculture, which is, well, they label it as record growth in agriculture, um, which is grown will be expected to grow by 8.5%. And the question, I'll pose the same question to you. The question that I posed to Jimmy was that, what do you think is driving that? What do you think will drive that growth? Because if you look at the budget, there's $15.2 million they're allocating towards that. But where do you think that $15.2 million will grow to yield that 8.5? percent that they want to achieve next year?
To be honest with you, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think look, if you are a technocrat and you look at these things and you look at the macroeconomic stuff that is put into the budget, I'm not saying the people that put them together are not well versed in these things. I just think that we are not serious about it. Even in the Western world that we live, right? Agriculture is
Mhm.
a highly subsidized industry. Believe me,
It is.
you both know that.
Yeah.
Agriculture is to make an impact in agriculture, the government needs to really double its effort in spending. You have to spend for that industry to be able to drive economic growth. This thing we're doing here, these numbers we're throwing out here, 15%, this percent. I don't know who's gonna get it at the end of the day, right? I don't know who the farmers that are going to benefit from it at the end of the day, right? Given Liberia the way Liberia looking, you got to have connections. So my old man or my old woman in the interior that doesn't know anybody but trying to make ends meet. Like the only thing they know is know how to make farm, but you don't have the connection with the agriculture department. You don't know people in this, so you might not likely get that. You might not likely get a portion or none of that money. You might not see. It might go to wherever it usually goes, so that we don't see the outcome. But here is the thing that the government can also do, right,
Mhm.
to make sure that everybody get a fair shake, right? I thought that's what I thought, right? I
Mhm.
thought, and this is not a Joseph Walker problem, it's not a George Weah problem, it's an Ellen
Yeah.
Johnson Sirleaf problem, right? Because
Mhm.
she started up our transition after the post-war, right? I would have thought, given the amount of international goodwill and everything that were governized by the international society, I mean community to get Liberia up and running, I would have thought that. And given her background, also she's a banker. She have worked in international organizations. She know these things. So I would have thought the first thing we would have done is to recapitalize the Agricultural Development Bank, right?
Yeah.
Recapitalize the Agricultural Development Bank,
Mhm.
make it so that our people have access to financing, because these things, again, this is not a joke. When you say
Yeah.
agriculture is the bedrock of an economy, this is not joking, not just words we're playing with here. It's serious, right? So financing is a very important component of agriculture. In America, the farmers get all kinds of subsidies to produce stuff, and even when they produce stuff they can't sell, the government buys it from them. So that's how subsidized this particular sector is. And we're talking about Liberia that uses Asian mentors of farming and whatnot. We're not even into mechanized farming yet. So I would have thought, right, this was going to be the first thing we'll do. We'll have to like recapitalize the Agricultural Development Bank, make it so that people can go to these banks that have their farms and whatnot and get loans from the bank, right? Farm, pay the loan back, or the government can guarantee. I mean, a government loan is cheap, right? So government can even stand as a guarantor, guarantee these loans, so that these people can be able to make farms, so that we can make an inroad into what Jimmy was talking about, become full secure, right? Over a period of time. Yeah,
Yeah.
but you keep throwing these snippets here and there, and then we say about 5.8% growth and whatnot, and then we still stagnant. At the end of the day, we still importing rice. We still importing everything. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So we have not made a dent yet. If you look at it, if you look at our balance of payment, if you look at the current account, it's always negative. We don't
It's
make, there's
negative.
no impact being made. You know what I mean? When we importing our staple food every day. So this is a look, I respect the senior comrade, but I mean, if you drill down to the technical part of this thing here, this is not a serious assessment. This is not going to make it for Liberia. I'm just honest with you.
Brilliant,
And I want to
Beast.
double down on that. It's
Yeah.
definitely not. And the whole part about it, agriculture is one of the main items on the agenda, the arrest agenda. Agriculture is supposed to be priority. Now we say, okay, you increased it from 6.78 million to 15. But Jack, that's not going to do anything to have a transformative impact. You have to do more than that. And if you're not hearing it, it's like, okay, somebody is sick, and you say, well, I will spend little money for their medicine. But if you don't give them the right medicine, what will happen? They will just stay sick.
No,
You
but
have
Jimmy. basically what they're doing is what we do in the United States. Yeah, they're not treating the illness for you to be well. They're just maintaining you so that they can sell you more medicine, so that you can keep taking it and the industry keep going, right? If the pharmaceuticals, the doctors get paid, everybody gets paid, but they're just maintaining. They don't want you to die. They're just keeping you alive because they have to sell those things to you. Basically, that's what these people are doing in Liberia. Right, we don't want to develop the agriculture sector. We just want to act like we're developing it and trying to make an inroad. But honestly, we're not trying to make this thing anything. So it's the horse and pony show we put up here and say, yeah, we increase it from 8% to 15%. What's the difference? Who's going to get that money? Like, how is it going to move the farmers, farm to market and all those kinds of stuff that we're talking about? How is it going to get these guys? Like the connections, the way like Brock works, this thing is not going to go anywhere. Like, I mean, you know that. I know that.
And something, Gabriel, something coming to mind, that some people, the way they do their budgeting, I don't think we do it. They do what we call PBB, performance-based budgeting.
Yeah.
You look at how the area's been performing, and that determines
allocate
exactly
the allocation you put towards
exactly. And if you know you have an underperforming area, you
take
have
money from there and put it to the performing areas.
Exactly. That's what you do. But we don't hear these things, and we kind of wonder. We know we got a whole lot of financiers, smart guys. Even one of our Focus on Liberia panelists is over there now, right? Debu.
Who is that?
Right?
Debu.
Oh,
Debu. Yeah. So why do we see this repetition? It's and what's not going to move the needle.
Yeah, and I think you guys brilliantly stated, I think what needed to be said. For me, I think we always have this level of expectation when somebody comes in, and then we have these glorified personas. We have this person, we think he knows a lot, he's going to do, but they come in, they just conform. They're conformed. They don't think like. It's one thing to have been in the system, right? And you say you got bogged down with the monotonies of how things are, the everyday. But it's one thing to move out of that system, to step back. It's like you're playing football. When you're in the game, you don't see some of the plays that supposed should have been made. But when you step back on the sideline, you get sub out, you come on the sideline, you see the game differently. So again, if they put you back in the game, guess what? You have a better IQ now than everyone who has been in the game, because you have been able to step on the sideline and see everything from a different perspective. So everybody had a different in terms of expectation of this current Minister of Finance. I thought he knew a lot, like you said, about performance-based budgeting, because especially for a country that is this small, that is poor, with this limited resources, that is one of the most important things you want to do. Know where to deploy your capital so it can give you the best return on your investment or the deployment you make. So if, like you guys say, if you're not investing in agriculture but it's not yielding enough, but there is a lot of investment in infrastructure that is returning a lot, you allocate more money towards that sector. But there is no one who is innovative enough or bold enough to say we cannot do budget like we've been doing it. So I absolutely agree with you guys. Let's jump into the next slide here as we track down this line. So this one is pretty much in line exactly what we're talking about here. This is how do you call it? Projection of everything that needs to happen within the. Did I put the wrong slide here? This is the wrong slide. Excuse me.
I think so.
Yeah, it is the wrong slide. Excusez-moi. Right. Okay. Hopefully I can find it. Voila. C'est ça. Okay. So this is their projection of the projection that they have for the economy up to 2029. As I think I said this earlier. So we're expected to grow 5.9% 5.8% this next year, and then 5.9 in 2026, and then for 2027 to 2029, 3 years straight, we will be flat at 6%. meaning there will, I don't know what they got those assumptions from. I'm sure they strictly took those from the World Bank projection, but it's not very specific to Liberia, and this is one of the problems that I have. That you got to make these things specific to us. Um, and then you look at the nominal GDP growth. There is a lot better than the real GDP. And then you look at the exchange rate. The exchange rate, I think it's accurate, and the reason why it's accurate because of who we have in power here. This is not going to be the case for just Liberia. This is going to be the case for almost every country around the world. The American dollar is going to strengthen against every currency. So the the exchange rate over there happening, continuing to go up and up and up and up and up to 2029. That is an accurate projection. But again, as Percy mentioned, you look at the current account balance. We have been flat negative since since 2006. We have been negative, or even way further back in 2003, we've been negative, and
I
that
don't even know. I don't even know if there was a time we were ever positive.
I can go. I think the further back I went was 2003, and we've been negative ever since
Yeah, you
until
can
we
even take
can
that. You can take that number back to 1832,
yeah.
and we'll still be negative.
Right. So, what do you guys make of these projections here, especially with the exchange rate or the GDP or even the current account balance, given that we are uh, a production-less economy where we don't produce anything? Um,
I mean, I don't know what the underlying assumptions are for these GDP numbers, right? So it's going to be hard to speak to that, right? I think it's just I think the government is gung ho about the future. That's what I think. I think they are very optimistic about the future, and they think that certain underlying fundamental is going to go their way, and so they are projecting 6% growth over the next 3 years or so. So, I mean, there's not a lot there you can speak to as far as those projections, right? In terms of the current account, um, yeah, that number been negative for a very long time, right? We have not done much to put a dent in it, and it just been wild, right? And I mean, in terms of the exchange rates, I don't know what to say, but 210. Are there inflation numbers? What are the inflation numbers? I thought you had
so
something up for inflation. Then I can peg that against what these
right now, right
exchange rates
now
are
we're
saying
at
and stuff like that.
yeah. So right now we're at 192. The exchange rate is at
Exchange
192.
rate is 192.
Right now, and that is expected to go up next year to what is it 197, which is yeah, right around the same. Um, but as you can see, it continued to go up uh, with everything else. The inflation, I don't think I have the inflation number, but I think it's about 7.7%. I don't have a chart on it, but it's at 7 and 7. Um,
I
yeah.
mean, for Liberia, I mean, somebody would say it's not bad, but I think it's still a killer, right? I think inflation is still a big deal in any economy, whether advanced or developing economy. I think inflation plays a large part into that because it actually is a tax, so to speak, on the poor, especially if you're poor and you have inflation at the 7% mark, and you're making ends meet. It's a lot to cope with in that kind of inflationary environment, right? So even at 7, it's still relatively high. We're still talking 7 point something, which we if you run it up, that's 8%. That's almost double digit inflation, right? So it's still relatively high. I don't know what the instruments we use to control these things are, but it's still fairly high. But I don't want to dwell on the monetary side because that's monetary talk right there. On the fiscal side, I don't know what driving these projections. Keep our fingers crossed and see what's going to happen. But as we go through that, I saw some interesting stuff in the budget I really want to comment on. So, but let's keep it going.
Yeah, we'd love to hear that. Jimmy, any thoughts on those figures? Any of them? Like maybe so for the exchange rate, with the exchange rate going up, where what is it? I think what is it, 197 next year? Right now it's at 192. That is inflation. I mean, $5 more if this phone will cost in $1, which is 192. Next year it will be $197. I mean, that's more money that have to come out of your pocket. Um, Given what's happening in the economy, what do you think are the implications on the average Joe Blow in both world?
Yeah, the the exchange rate is really surprises me because right now I'm hearing from Liberia that the exchange rate is actually going down. So for some wild reason, the Liberian dollar performs weirdly to the American dollar. Now, even though we see the dollar strengthening against currencies, you know that the U.S. does not particularly want that to be the case because
No,
it's strengthening. It means it makes its goods more and more expensive,
expensive. Yeah.
and so then people may take an alternative route or buy less. And so it's not a good so that the U.S. dollar becomes so powerful. But for some reason, we're not as affected as other countries are. I'm not sure it's because we use the U.S. dollar as legal tender, and so there's a different dynamic that it takes because again,
Yeah,
supply and demand, maybe because we have more supply of the U.S. dollar, since we do use it as legal tender, it doesn't adversely affect the local currency as would in other countries where there's limited access to the U.S. dollar. So, in the in the years to come, I think with the foreign exchange, the best way to protect yourself against rising foreign exchange rates is to produce more
yeah,
and increase your output and local consumption,
right.
and you'll be insulated from
Hmm.
some of the fluctuations that are happening globally. You know,
Yeah,
and that is why agriculture would have been a good idea to sort of you know balance yourself against all that rising inflation rates and exchange rates. You know.
yeah, and to both of you's point, the I agree with you, Jimmy. The more the U.S. dollar strengthens, the more countries such as those in Africa, South America, or even some Eastern European countries will struggle. Um, I agree with you that the U.S. doesn't want that, but what in as much that it'll make their goods more expensive, what it'll also do, it gives them that dominance. It's still like still a power that they're wielding over all these other countries. If we want, we can cripple you from a currency perspective. We just have to strengthen our country. I mean, our currency from a policy standpoint, and you know, there will be few flies dropping. It happened in the South America. It happened in South America when they had the South American currency crashes. It happens all the time. Every time the U.S. currency strengthened, countries suffer. But yes, there's an alternative, and every countries, all of those countries that have been enduring those economic pains, have now formed the alliance, the break alliance. Say, hey, because we've been enduring this, we don't want to endure that anymore. So there will always be an alternative. The question is, we are not part of that alternative, so we're stuck. And the reason why we're even stuck even more is that we are the Liberian dollars is pegged against the US dollars. Matter of fact, our exchange rate is a fixed regime compared to it being floated like some countries on the continent. So we are stuck. What happens to the US dollars here automatically affects what happens in Liberia directly. Nothing because of how we manage our exchange rate. So that's the like Percy was saying, that's the poor man tax. And the poor man tax, we brought the poor man and set him right beside us and said, do whatever you can. Whatever you do, we will bear the consequences. So that's the tragedy there. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next slide here. All right, so I know we have not that much time, so let me go to the most important slide here. I think we talked about this earlier, which is the voila. So this is probably and um, not the best breakdown, but this is a gross breakdown of the entire budget. I think Jimmy and I were talking about this before we came on air. So if you right now in terms of revenues, well, not revenue, money, we have $1.1 billion in our coffer to spend for 2025. That is a huge sum of money. Uh, Total, the budget we got was 851. We get $202 million from grant, and we got another 139 million and a half from loans. So that brings our total to rounded up to $1.2 billion to spend next year. The argument that I was making, Jimmy and I were talking about, and I think this is something I think everybody should be aware of, is at 851 million, the public administration is only expenditure is only at 336 million. And then if you add the grant, they're getting 25 million from that grant we get, and they're getting another 13, let's say 14 million from the loan. So the case that I was trying to make here is that our expenditure is not fixed. So the higher the money, the revenue increases, the more money these people take to spend on themselves. We could have said we collected 852 million. Let's just round it up at 852. Let's take to the 336.6 million for public administration. The 25 million we're getting from the grant, the other 13 million that we're getting from the loan, those could have gone to the counties who are only getting peanuts on this money. But because we have this additional money that we have coming in, there seems that there is a need to go and tap into that money again and still add on to this public administration spending. So in total, out of that $1.2 billion, they're getting 375 and a half, right? And if you look at the other allocation to municipal government, you look at public, the transparency and accountability, security and the rule of law, which is the NSA. You look at how much you're spending on healthcare, social development services. You can go down in like education. I think we did a lot there by $115 million. I'm rounding up here. We have energy, 23 million, which I think we could have energy and environment. I think we could have allocated a lot towards that in this whole quest to be energy sufficient. Agriculture, we went up to 15 million. Infrastructure and roads and business services were 71, and community and commerce and industry were 9. But this is the overall budget that we get. This is how much we're getting, and these are the most important sectors or ministries breakdown in which that money is being allocated to. Looking at this, what are your specific thoughts as it relates to this administration? If you have followed the campaign and what this government supposed to do, what you think this budget is supposed to do. Does this budget reflect anything that is going to make some kind of inway in the country, either from an administration or development standpoint, or just basic services standpoint? What are your thoughts?
Go ahead, Preston.
Let me take this down. If you want me to bring it back up, let me take it down.
I come to these discussions not just from the current standpoints, right? I like the historic. I like to go back and do a historical analysis of these things over time.
Yes, please.
Right. I think we as Liberians have adopted this top-down approach to development, and it's reflected in the budget, right? When you look at the budget, everything is centralized to the central administration, and then everybody else just scrambling for crumbs,
Mhm.
basically, right? There's absolutely no reason a small country like Liberia should be expending 300 and some more $1 million on just paying civil servants and whatnot. It tells you the government is big, right? You need to cut down some of this government, or you need to strengthen the local government so that they can absorb some of these people. Because I know it's a political issue, right? You can just go there. I know you can just go there and start telling people, no, fine, we're using a budget like that. It's political. I mean, you got constituencies to take care of. I understand the political argument for that, but I also think the economic argument for that is also important. I think it's the most important why we should even downsize our government and make way so that the local government can absorb the extra people, because we have no administrative structure at the local level, right? I mean, what we have there is like a skeleton. I mean, it's not fully built, right? So you have basically skeleton at the county level, skeletons staff at the county level, and they get paid crumbs here and there and whatnot. What if we took a different approach to this thing? Like, I don't want you to just cut, right? Do a blue ribbon panel. Let's study this issue and say we need to bring the wage bill down, right? The public administration bill is just really too high for a country like us. Basically, we are indebting future generations to fat cats to enjoy living the life that they're living in, like, bro, in a poor country while the rest of the people are suffering. It just doesn't make sense. And the budget is a reflection of that, of what I've just explained to you. You know, for a country like Liberia, we have our budget is we spend too much at the top, especially for top officials. We spend just too much money on these people, and the rest of us can go kick dust. Right? You sick, there's no hospital to go to. If God bless you, if you only get, one of my friends jokingly told me, my president, only thing you get in that country, only get malaria. When you get malaria, only thing you get any other sickness is a possible death sentence. Reason being, there's no either inadequate hospital, inadequate medical facility. Everything
Yeah.
else is inadequate, right? So only malaria we have found some way, found something for. So this top-down approach, the way the budgets look as it is right now, and I got the numbers behind me there for a reason. Maybe
Mhm.
you already noticed. I've been
I noticed
tracking
that.
these
Yeah.
numbers, right? And the most important thing to me is the PSI part of it. We invest very little, if anything, into
Yeah.
public sector investment, and yet and still we expect these rosy macroeconomic stuff that we write in the budget. We expect them to come to fruition. It's not true. The two are out of whack, right? There's no way you cannot invest into public sector and then you be talking about these rosy numbers in agriculture. You be talking about these rosy numbers in this and that, and we do. It's not realistic. And I was hoping the senior corporate government would have come and brought more credibility to the budget, right? To be presenting credible budget. That's what makes a government credible, because your budget is credible, right? The PSI numbers for this budget is minuscule. All that thing we're talking is minuscule. Matter of fact, we have a deficit that was a 60 million deficit. I think I saw that we have to finance. Who's going to be who? Because Liberia cannot finance a deficit the way other country can do by the treasury going out there and issuing, having an auction and issuing
Yeah.
debt. We go into foreign markets, which is
Yeah.
very scary when you think about it. Those are the kind of things we went into in 1871. So I just think we need to this every time we come here, we're talking about this same. The budget doesn't change structure. The structure is still the same. Whether it's a CDC government or a Unity Party government,
So
there it's still
my
the same.
my
You know,
question to you
it's a top
is,
down. It's a top down approach. It doesn't work.
what is it going to take to change the structure of the budget to make it more developmental, or to make it more people centric?
You
To
said
make
what
it
it's
more
gonna
people
take?
centric. What is it going
You're
to
gonna
take
need,
to make it more people centric?
you're gonna need a new legislature, Gabriel. You need a new legislature. Because these guys, they know it's not that they're not aware that at this rate we're not going to make any progress, but they're quite satisfied with it as long as they get paid well. You see, if we had a serious legislature, first of all, we're going to say any money we borrow cannot be used against salaries.
Yep,
Because
that's true.
that is a no-no.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
You're supposed to borrow money to invest, to make more, to bring in more money, not for
Agree.
salary expenditure. We should not be taking more. That is unsustainable. What are you doing? But and they know I don't think it's that they don't know, but it's okay to do it because the people are not getting up and revolting and saying that this is the way you're doing us is not fair. But it is hard to understand why we consistently neglect the things we have to do. The thing that person was talking, for the audience sake, that PSI investment. In other words, all this thing you want to do, if you don't do this one first, it will not work.
Yep.
But that's infrastructure and development. It will not work. So that means all this thing they're doing it's not going to work. It just flows through. So we're spending money for nothing. Why we don't do the most important thing to prepare the public sector for the kind of infrastructure it needs, so the place will grow. I mean, you have to do the fundamental first.
Yep.
If you don't do anything at all, do the fundamental thing first. But doing anything beside doing the fundamental is superficial and will not last. And we'll be back here at the same way next year.
Or maybe Jimmy, or maybe if we strengthen the counties, maybe, because there's revenue to be generated, there's sources there to be generated. Maybe this burden might not even be too much on the national government if we just strengthen our county and the county's economies and whatnot, the local economy. There's money to be made there. You just look around, right? There's money to be made. For example, another on top state is real estate, right, in the counties and whatnot. The national government should not be getting that money. That money should be going directly down there, right? That's why the country look like the way it is, because all the money go to the people and up, and nothing get divvied down to the counties. And then when you go to the county, almost like nothing going on here. But how something is going to go on here in these places when there is no structure, no revenue to put the structure in place? Absolutely nothing. Everybody can be president. Some people can be superintendent. Some people can be in the educational something to the county. People care about the county sometimes because Moravians what's good for the people in Moravia might not be good for the people in the counties. And Moravians don't think about what's going on. You mute Gabriel. Moravians don't think about what's going on in the counties, right? They're only thinking about their lots today. And then nobody cares about what goes on in the county.
I think you're bringing up a very important point. We've been talking about decentralization, and there are ways to do it gradually. But you are 100% right. A lot of those money, if they could go directly to the counties, you will encourage local economic activity. And in fact, local people know what they actually need as
the people in Moravia. Yeah, they don't know. The people living in Moravia, they may care. Right. You're not living in your community.
Exactly. I went the other day, a few years ago. We hadn't been on the farm for years, and I went on the farm, and I started talking to them, the people on the farm, and I said, "What y'all doing?" And they said, "What y'all need?" And you know what they said? They said, "My man, we need one well." He said the well would do. I think we spent about $1,500 to put that well in. That well has been a source for the whole area now, not just the farm, the people on our farm, but everywhere else. They know what they need. Why don't you give them a chance to, I like the way Rawlings did it. You see how Rawlings ruled? We're offering suggestions. Rawlings had people, he did it kind of like a Politburo kind of style. He had people in every small village and community say, "Tell me, I want to hear what the people want, what the people are saying." Then he could address their issue. That is what we're supposed to be doing. We have people there gathering information, not to tell. We're not talking about PRO. We're talking about what the people actually need. And then you can address it, and you can be a good leader, But we have to be interested in doing that, bringing relief to the people. And I think I think you are 100% right. If we allow more local governments to decide how things will be used, how things will be generated. As a side note, I noticed they're about to get all the port authorities be autonomous. In other words, it should be. I somebody thought about that, and I said, that's something to consider, because if each port authority can determine how best it is to address their needs.
But
So that is one idea. I see that came up. I'm not sure what.
Be careful with that. Be careful with that. It's a good idea. It's a good idea, but the reason they are doing this, they have ulterior motives. The legislators, the senators, and whatnot, they have ulterior motives. The only way this is going to be good, except you have, again, an infrastructure in place where the people elect their leaders. Like we start electing superintendent, who is the chief executive of that county, who is the small president, so to speak. For y'all who not know what chief executive are, because I don't assume everybody know the small presidents. If we start electing smaller presidents and vice presidents in the counties, they will be able to cope with those infrastructure. Now the man got a port to himself. He has a revenue source, so he can think about, okay, where we need hospital. So these guys are not doing it because they want to give local authority to the people. They're doing it because they're going to get kickbacks. They are big shots. That's why they're trying to do it. But to handicap them, the best thing you can do is to having local elections in odd years, not in even years, because we do have elections. Yeah, you have an election for president, vice president, no. But you can have odd years elections, right? In odd years, you can have odd years election where people will run for these local offices, and then we will see, local ideas. Then the place will develop organically, because the thing people in Bone County want, people in Sano might not want it, or the ideas that might work in Bone County, it might not work in Sano, it might not even work in Lofa. But that's what makes the country diversify, right? You diversify the country administratively, and then you see how everybody grow. And it will be competition, right? There will be growth competition. They may see something good going on in the country. Oh, we can do it better, yeah. And that's the kind of healthy competition that you need at the local level. I mean, yeah, everybody can be president. Everybody don't want to be Monrovia, but you have to give something so people can move away from Monrovia. This top-down model, Jimmy, it just doesn't work. It hasn't worked, and this is why we have this kind of budget coming up.
Yeah. I think we talked about that without going too much off a tangent here. We talked about that yesterday, and I think one time we were talking about some kind of I think the HPS deal, and you propose a structure which I think was a great structure, which is the SPV, the special purpose vehicle, where but I also hear, I don't know how true it is, I heard there's also privatization in the work as well. I don't know how true it is, or is it just being they just want to put it into an autonomous structure. But I heard there are conversation about privatizing the port. So I don't know how true it is, but
no, I think it would be a good. I think it would be a good thing if let's prioritize it. Prioritizing me. Let's do a P2P or PPP kind of stuff, right? Like you said, let's have a renowned company come and run these ports. They take their share, and we take our share, right? Because that's the only way you're gonna get quality, right? That's the government. Government is an inefficient, so to speak, bureaucracy. Right. Yeah. So, but if you blend it with the private sector, it makes a lot of sense, right? You take away the bureaucratic incentive, then these guys are working. These guys are private people. They're working. They know if they don't do good work, they're not going to get paid. That's how they make that money. So you're going to see set a level of efficiency that you don't see in government. So yeah, let's privatize the port. Let each local county get access to the port, but it shouldn't be because these guys in the legislature, they're trying to kick back, they're trying to get access to money so they can run campaign 2029 and be doing. No, that's not what we're here for. Our people need these things. These things needs to happen so that the country can move forward, right? So yeah, let's do what we have to do, but let's do it in a way that the people benefits at the end of the day. And that's my thing. And we have to start with this kind of budget. My point, yes, what's driving me crazy. Every time you come here, there's nothing new to talk about in this budget because the structure is still basically the same. It's still the same budget. It's still high wages, low public sector investment, top to bottom. Whatever the party is that in power, you still have this kind of budget
And
that is
this
not carrying the
is
country anywhere.
and this is why when you guys, every time there's a new minister of finance, you guys, I see you guys celebrating. Oh, I know this guy. He's great. He's gonna do this. He's gonna
After the
like,
senior
dude.
comrade.
Hey, seen a camera. Like, I think that's the thing we have to get used to too, right? In as much I might know you, if I think you are not up to tax, it is upon me to tell you that, right? To be able to say that to you. It's not about, speaking against you. It's about, especially if you're in a position of public where you are in charge of, this in this case 5.3 million people, right? Um, and we had this expectation of, this person is going to come in and do maybe something drastic, or maybe, propose something to the president. You are the fiscal manager of the country with 5.3 million in people in it. You've seen you've been there before. You've seen what your predecessor did uh, before you coming in. Now you come in with supposedly fresh new idea, having worked at the African Development Bank. But to come out and propose this kind of budget, and it is the same old. Here's the point that you're talking about here. Let me share a screen here that so you guys can see. This is the public sector investment here. And I think, and this is the thing that baffled that. This is why I don't like politicians. I will say this categorically. I do not like politicians because they play on people ignorance, right? And this is exactly the ignorance they're playing on. They're comparing 2024 to 2025, which is, this is what our predecessors invested in public sector. This is what we're investing. Oh, they invested only in 95 million in private public sector investment. We are putting in 106 million. But from the average person who doesn't understand percentages, if you look at the percentages from the revenue they collected, their predecessor collected, and the revenue they're collecting, it does not make any difference. There's no difference. They're literally at the flat line, the same. But if somebody who doesn't really understand these figures, they look at it, they will say, oh, these people are invested only 95 million. Oh, the JBN campaign, regime is investing way more than that, 106 million. But guess what? JBN regime total revenue package is 1.2 billion. The previous regime, the last year, I think it was about 750 million, right? So if you do the percentages breakdown, they are literally the same, right? And for a country of 5.3 million people to allocate just 103 million in public sector investment, I don't know where that is even investments are going to go into. Is it roads? Is it like infrastructure or whatever, hard and soft infrastructure? Soft infrastructure, I don't know though what that is even going to be. But this is peanuts. This is nothing. This is, again, this is nothing for a country. This does not show you that you have any intention to improve the country. So this is the kind of qualm we talk about here, and this is the reason why when I say I don't like politicians, because they play on people ignorant. If you look at this from the as a layman perspective, you would think this is some kind of something to celebrate, and you will hear them celebrating this thing in the public, or we're putting more into public sector than the previous regime. But from a percentage standpoint, based on the number of the quantum of money you receive and what they had at their disposal, this is literally a flat line. Um, Same numbers, and you can do the percentage breakdown. So this is the reason why when you guys, this guy took over, you guys thought he was, the next best thing since palm butter and Red Cross. I didn't buy into that. I just thought this
No.
was somebody who would just, is in corporate America what we call paper and pen pusher. Somebody who just come in, who does nothing innovative. They just follow the flow for following this flow, for just because they want to follow the flow. That's a high level paper and pen pusher. That's exactly what the guy is. And I hope he can go back. This is what at the end of the year, sit with the president, say, Mr. President, this is your administration. I think this is even going to be your last term. What do you want your legacy to be? Let's do something that is going that the people are going to remember in this country. Put a bill forward that is going to cut down some of these wasteful spending we do on scratch cars and buying cars for these people. Even propose on cutting the salary. Put that bill forward, and we will put that in the budget, and we will make it contingent upon the budget being signed in contingent to that bill being signed as well. Do something drastic. And if you, as someone who's been in the government for so long, the president here, you should have influence. This is why being in somewhere for a long time does. You should have influence.
I mean,
You should have persuasion to be able to persuade people to do the things you want them to do, to convince them
yeah.
to buy into your vision. But this is something we have not seen, and this is why I don't think this president, this new minister of finance has
Yeah,
a task.
but
Yeah,
Gabe,
yeah.
um, there's because there's politics involved, and why I say that, if you notice that the last minister of finance, he resigned and given health reasons. All right, 2 months later, I don't know what happened to him in a matter of a month or so, but all of a sudden, he resigned. So some people of certain kind of ethical background, they will not accept certain things when they know it's wrong. They rather take the exit. Okay. Now, the what you call him, the senior comrade,
Yeah, it's no
Afford,
comrade.
hasn't
Yeah,
been there very long. He's got to make an assessment. Let's face it, Percy, and both of you guys are economists. It takes a while to make a good assessment.
He's been around the block, Jimmy.
He
If he
has.
was new, I would say yes. He needs to learn the ropes, learn the
Yeah.
ropes, learn her way around the administration, learn her way around the ministry. But he's been around the block, Jimmy. Like you should know, like you're like a player who's used to a field,
I
right?
agree, but he was under Ellen Johnson, and now listen, Ellen had that same position. You know, she was at finance before, so she knows the ropes pretty well. And he was under her tutelage at the time. You know, as a young fella just from school, so some, you know.
No. Ellen was finance minister in the 70s. He was not even thinking about coming out of school.
That's what I was trying to say. She no, when she hired him.
When she became president,
Yeah.
he okay, yeah, all right then.
Yeah, so she was kind of like under her tutelage. He was learning at that time. So
Yeah.
that was you learning under somebody who is seasoned in that kind of thing is different than somebody who is not. Well, I'm not giving an excuse for him. I'm trying to say it's a very short time, you know, and I think he had to just do what he was ordered to do, and he didn't make there's no, just what you guys said. There's nothing significantly different about that budget, and a lot of times what they've been doing is cut and paste. We haven't been doing regression analysis and whatnot to determine if our investment direction is proper. They don't do that. They just simply, what was it last year? They pat on something and they no. It's gonna have to be very deeper, much deeper. So I think this year I would give him a pass because he's new to the administration, but after this year, it will be all his. You know.
Here's my thing. I'm when it comes to like, I'm not afraid to criticize anybody. I can have
Fair
a
enough.
relationship with you, but it's about something that's bigger than our relationship, right? So
Exactly.
I jokingly call him the senior comrade because he is the senior comrade. When I was on JJ Rao scholarship, I explained a story to you. We went every March 15 on JJ Rao's birthday. Those are us that was on the scholarship. We meet at the church down the street there, Jimmy, right? And there's this whole thing, they cook, you eat, and there's a whole program. And so we go to the back of the place there where they're serving the food, and they were serving the food, and then he had gone in and got some of the food, and then he ate when he was coming. Whenever he went a second round, he wanted to go back for second round, and then he said, and but say second round, he's like that. Then he started using jargons like that. But oh man, the food was very minute. you know, I didn't have, you know, so I play, yeah, there is some coming at the beginning, there is some coming, carry that one in the go second round. You talk about the food are very minute, but that's the affinity that I have for God, right? Those are my childhood memories, and I have certain level of affinity for him. But as for man and what is ahead of us as a country, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to criticize anybody for that matter when it comes to my country, right? Because I want to see my country do good. So that all of the way. But having said that, I think anybody ascending to the presidency should have a vision for the country, right? You can't get to the presidency before you start thinking about what you want to do. You should initially have a vision for where you want to take the country. Towards that end, I think we should build the Liberian presidency, not the president, the presidency, the office of the president. Give him the tools, give him everything that he needs. Put legal advisors around him, right? Have a legal advisor, put a legal advisor around him so that you don't make the kind of mistake the old man is making with this whole speaker thing. Because if he has somebody who knew the Constitution, they'll tell you, say, yeah, my man, I know that politics involved here, but oh man, you can't do this. You have to let the process to go. You know what I mean? So you want to have a legal advisor around him, but you also want to have an economic team around him too, right? You want to have an economic team around him, a very solid economic team around him, but you also want to have a budget team around him, right? So you want to have the office of the president, you have a budget person that this budget should come from the president office. It shouldn't be coming from the finance ministry. Me personally, that's what I think. The president budget should come from his office. You know what I mean? And that's where you see the finance minister get so much focus, because the president himself is not formulating his budget, it's formulated somewhere else at another bureaucracy that has so many things on its plate, and that's where you go to put the budget. And also, the president should be formulating his budget, because that the budget is symptomatic of the president's vision for the country. And this thing we're talking about here, about how you cut this, how you cut that, it's the president that's supposed to be saying, listen, I think government is too big. We should be cutting this. We should be cutting, and then you will see this budget taking a whole different form. You will not see the cut and paste that we see every year in, year out. You won't see that, because you know what? You have your economic people there around you and telling you, Mr. President, this is not this. This is where we can do growth at. And we'll start moving the numbers here and there, moving it around and start doing stuff differently. So we have not built the Liberian presidency. We only have a president. Not the office of the president should be a whole entity, right? Where you have all those different facets working together to make it work. And then the finance ministry is just supposed to be it's a boring role. It's supposed to be a boring role. You're not supposed to be having all the focus on you as finance minister, right? I bet you don't even know who the current finance minister or the current treasury secretary is yet, except you into things like me and Gabriel, but you don't know her. Nobody know Janet Yellen. But she's solid. She's a technocrat, and she's doing her job. It's a very powerful, but you don't know her, and that's how it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to know the finance minister like the way we know them in Liberia, because the president have his own economic team that is crafting his budget, that is in line with his vision, that have his own legal team that is advising him on what to do, what legal, what the action he's taking, whether or not is legal. You have all these things around. You got your budget people that are making sure your budget comes on time. All these things, my friend. If you do that for the Liberian presidency, you build these things out, the entity, you build the structure and put it in place. Nobody will know who Gafan is. Gafan will be there doing his work. All he will want to do, you get deficit, how much money we need to put in, how much debt we need to issue. And that's the thing. Those are the mundane things he's going to be doing, making sure the system is safe, making sure banks are on a regular. Those are the things he's going to be doing. You know what I mean? Those are the things the treasury is supposed to be focused on, not the president's budget, because the budget itself is an extension of the president's vision for the country. Oh my God, you're sorry.
I know you like that, man, as a senior comrade, but I agree with everything you said. But
now, how I finished it for the senior comrade? He's the senior comrade.
You like him as a senior comrade. I think he might have a better fiscal IQ than monetary IQ. When it comes to that, I can tell you right now, he is.
No, but Gabriel, Gabe, that's why we have a legislature. They are for overview. Okay, they play an important part in determining how that budget, if it needs more investment in certain areas, they suppose that their job is to point that out as well. That is why they themselves supposed to be surrounded by economists, engineers,
Yeah.
whatever experts,
Let me
so that they can be
Okay,
advised.
like we got a CBO, yeah. They're supposed to have their own entity also. The legislature supposed to have all those things. CBO,
let me
GAO, all these things supposed to be part of the legislative part of things because
let
they're
me
supposed
tell
to be
you
having checks on the presidency.
let me
Exactly.
tell you guys how clueless these people are. And I think sometimes, this is why I agree with you. When we see the budget, we go through it. Sometimes we just scratch our head like, I like beef. Here's something that we're always told when you're in the analyst program. They tell you if you write a proposal, you analyze it with a company or whatever, read that over 3 times and give it to somebody
Mm-hmm.
else to read it before you
Yep.
even put that out. Let me tell you what. And sometimes you go. This will be the segue into what we're going to talk about next. Let me tell you how these people do not even analyze what they put out. We collected total with revenue, grant, and loans $1.2 billion, right? Out of that, well, the 852 million dollars, 336 is reoccurring public administration uh,
Mm.
money. You know how much right now our debt is? 5.2.5 billion. Now, there's a point that I'm getting to. To service that debt annually, we are now at $137 million to service this annually.
Mm-hmm.
Yet again, still we're borrowing another 139 million, but we're taking out of that 139 million to go put it into expenditure again. Well, that 14 million we could have saved. The other what was it? I think it's 15 million from the grant. We could have allocated that towards servicing debt instead of spending that towards the expenditure, the recurring expenditure. If this was someone who is very in tune with the budget and what he's putting out, that would be the thing that catches his attention. $137 million that I'm paying towards debt, but I'm borrowing another $139 million. That's equivalent to what you're borrowing right now
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to service your debt. You could have said, let's put off that borrowing because that 139 million borrowing because we're almost spending the same amount to service debt, right? But they are not looking at that from that standpoint. For them, this is a mundane, like aid. As I keep saying, there's a high level paper and pen pushing, like you just copy and paste and do what the predecessor did and just go with conformity and continue. But in
What if the
actuality,
president?
you are not making any impact.
What
You're
if the
not making
president
any
has?
impact.
What if the president had his office of the president,
The
and he
president,
had economists, actual
he
economists
has
around him
an
that have.
advisor. He has an advisor. Let me tell you
You need a
how
slew of
clueless those
people.
people are. He does. They just signed a $25 million scam with Nigeria, I mean with Ghana. I know people who signed up for that scam, not nanotech or whatever. Kids in Liberia paid $200 to sign up. When they got on the Zoom to walk them for the people to walk them through the process of how they're going to get into this university, you know who was on the Zoom? A lady in her living room on the Zoom with people passing behind her. Some of these kids were wise enough to say, hey, this does not look like a serious thing. Some of them got off and they started this is how the news came out. But for a country, a whole president, and I agree with you, the president should have his own budget office to have an economic advisor with all those people around him, even the minister of the foreign minister, with all the people that announces to do basic due diligence that you and I can do.
Yeah, but
Google and look at this thing and say, who is this company? What did they do? What have they done? Who are the people behind it? And what is legitimate? They were not able to do that, but they were able to sign that bogus deal. I say that to say the president may just appoint people, and I will say this for most people in ministers in government in Liberia, they are just fluff. Don't see them walking around like that with those kosu on, and that's they have like they are clueless. They are clueless. And this is why we're seeing the budget we're seeing today. And this is why we'll continue to see these mistakes that we'll continue to see today. To really be more analytical, like you and I are doing on here, like we took the time for the last 2 weeks, a week and a half, to look at this budget and have all these questions and like what could be done differently. They can't afford the time to do that. So tell me, how do you expect for any changes to come out of that if somebody cannot do the bare minimum to take time like you've done? Like I can see the budget behind you. Look like you've spent time on it and just highlighted stuff and look at it and play with it.
No,
This
no
is
project
somebody in
yet.
the president office supposed to be doing that, or in the ministry of finance supposed to be doing that. And then take that information and now go to the minister of finance and say, hey, this is what I was able to find out. If you that work 40 hours a week with a family and everything else that has life going on around you can take your time to do that, what more about somebody that we're paying in a country that has more holidays than we do in this country? Why can't they do that? No. So that's my
um
qualm about that. Yeah.
yeah, and that's a fair point. You know, the people should be doing the job, but I mean, if like, again, I think too much is put on the minister of finance, right? He's thrown into the spotlight on one on like last time it was Samuel Twe, this time is this person, the other time it was Amara Kone. You know, it was only in this late time you started to hear all these kind of names. When I was a kid, I didn't know who the ministers were in government. Not that I was following at the time either. But I just feel like too much spotlight is on this guy, on this one person. You
Mm.
know, if we just do things differently, maybe that Ministry of State, because it's essentially the office of the president, maybe build it out so that it actually a Ministry of State, right? Have these various entities in there. Like if you have somebody just dedicated to the budget, because the budget, you start working on the budget when the budget pass, the next, as soon as you finish passing the budget, the person start working on the next budget right away. You know what I mean? So if somebody is just dedicated to there, you have a whole team of people dedicated to just the budget, right? And you have a whole team of people dedicated to just economics, statistics, right? To feed these guys with the budget, in the budget, on the budget side and stuff like that. You will not see that again. That's true. This is a cut and paste. Every year you read, you go by anytime you read the budget, it's the same
Exactly.
thing. They just
Well,
change,
let me
they just change one or
ask
two
you
numbers
guys
in there.
something. Let me pose a question, be the devil advocate, because you talk about efficiencies just now. If you go to the government offices, let's be honest, let's be practical. You will see that, you know, the 20-80 rule. The 20-80 rule is apply all around. 20% of the people do 80% of the work. But in LIB, you will find the 20% will be doing maybe 40% of the work. Everybody is going home by lunchtime. You can't blame them too. Sometimes they say, well, we take you or all of that. And here's the idea. So we have so many people on the payroll. And not they don't have a lot to do. They don't have very much to do. Some of those people don't really have a good job assignment. They just go there every year. And now it's a political matter, because to sack them, you bring in disfavor to your entity, to your administration. So it's a two-edged sword, you know. But the only way we will have a very efficient administration, government, is if we give those people separation money, or what they call it, severance. You get a severance that they can go in the private sector, because they're not doing nothing in the office.
No, Jimmy, I don't want to give nobody money that they don't earn. I don't want to give severance. What I think. Yeah, but what we can do is here's how you let that one my man come and do the few days to you in America here too. Yes, what we can do.
Yeah, you already said it.
Yes, what we can do. Yes, what we can do. What I think doesn't work. If you don't want it, then I mean you basically taking yourself out of a job. What we can do is to say the local government thing is a good idea. It's a very good idea. We can say, listen, the government cannot absorb everybody. You know what I mean? The government is bloated. We have too many people, and we have people not actually like working like the way they're supposed to. And so what we're gonna do over time is we now have the local government. The local government needs staff. We need to staff these local governments and whatnot. So people who are working in the government that might not be we find to be surplus to requirement and all those kinds of things. We're not gonna fire you. We're not gonna do anything. We're gonna find a place for you at one of these local government offices in the counties, right? And see how best you can start working there. You're still working for the government. You're still gonna get paid. But it's just that you're working for the local government now. You're not working for the national government again. It's the local government. So if you feel like you don't want to go work in Bogonjide, in Sano for little or nothing, then you putting yourself out of job. But we did offer you a job. You know what I mean? But if you don't want to take the job, then you can say we didn't offer you. We fire you. We didn't fire you. We offer you another job for you to go take. You know what I mean? And to the extent that you don't want to take that job, hey, it's up to you. You don't want to say you don't want a job, or the government did not take you over payroll. They only tell you to go work down there in Bogonjide because you will be more helpful there. You know what I mean? Or in Salala, one of these places, then you can go. You will be more useful than here sitting around doing bare minimum. That's what it is.
So you would pay for the man relocation?
And I mean, that's reasonable. That's reasonable. We can look into that. That is a reasonable option. You know what I mean? If I'm telling you to go Bogonjide, I might as well at least facilitate something for you to get there. But you're not going to be sitting down here and you're doing nothing, and we're just paying you, and we're indebting the country in the process. Look at what's happening.
Right. We're getting nothing. We're getting nothing.
You know, but what about that man can be down there in Bogonjide? You have plenty of things to do there because it's a new structure. There's a whole lot of work to do. You can do 80, 90 hours a week job right down there because it's a whole new infrastructure we're trying to put in place there. You'll be more useful there than sitting down in Monrovia here.
Yeah, that is an argument. I do, and everybody been talking decentralization will truly help. I think the reason, and let me be a little more proverbial here. I think the reason for a lot of the civil unrest and strife we've had is because it was so central. Everything was centralized on Monrovia.
Yeah.
If people in Sano, Grand Jita, and Nima, if they had a say in their own future and distribution of wealth, it wouldn't have turned out that way. But because it's all eyes in Monrovia, they got everything, they get everything, they tell us what to do. So they became targets. So the one way to diffuse it is to have some of the decision making made local. Give them more power. Give them what they can call, give them more incentive to be more nationalistic and make decisions.
Autonomous, yeah. And you would think that what you talked about would be what that was some of the lessons from the. I mean, Gabby, this is still in connection with the budget. This is not off tangent, right? But you would think that some of the lessons from the war that we learned as a people would be one of these, right? Maybe things are too centralized here, and everybody, and that's why our politics is so contagious. Like we fight each other. It's so high. It's almost like a zero-sum thing. It's not about okay, who has the best argument won. The people agree with the guy argument and they won. Let me go strategize and listen to what they have to say and come back later on. No. It's almost like left and death. You see people going, you see how our politics is in election year is left and death because people want access to this very finite resources that we get in the country. People want access to it. They want to sit there, they want to get kicked back, they want to enjoy it at the expense of everybody else. That's what it is. But if you took away that incentive, if the guy knew like, well, I ain't gotta kill myself here, Nima, I can go be superintendent in Nima, I could be this in Nima, I could be that in Nima. I ain't gotta kill myself here. You know what I mean? That you take away the strife, you know, but everything else is just it's too hard. Politics is too hard. I'm not saying it should be easy, but it shouldn't get down to the point that we go sometimes, right? Because there are other avenues. You can take that too. And in this local government thing, Jimmy, what it's going to do also is it's going to produce able leaders in the country. You're not going to wait for people to come from overseas. You're not going to be looking for people because the guy would have proven himself that he's a capable manager. He's a capable executive based on what he done, if he done anything at all in the counties. And then he can say, listen, I did well in that county. I want to come here and I want to be president. So people will not be asking who the guy is again. They will just look at what you did in Nima County and how you made Nima County better, or Lofa County for that matter, how you made your place better. And then, you know what, the guy, they may got something to offer. Let's see what we can do at the national level. But you just have everybody, they kind of kamikaze stunts that we have during election year. People from nowhere just coming. They're just showing up. They expect to get votes and whatnot. That's why we get 700 people on the ballot every year, and the people to get confused with all 700 of them. That's why you see the ballot that get discarded is too many, because the people don't know all the people, and then the people are not already educated. And then you bring all the 900 people and put them on a paper for them to check on. I mean, come on now.
So I have a question for both of you, and
Yep.
and this is I don't want to say it's theoretical because the evidence is there from a historical standpoint, and now we can look at the external forces that play a part into this, but then again, there's always what do you call it? A self an implosion from within that always happen in Liberia, you know, because what we do, we have this area of peace where we have long time of sustained peace, but what happens in that term, there's a suppression of lots of people. There's 21 years since we've been out of power, we've been out of
Of
war.
war.
There
Hmm.
is not, we have not even inched up to like a high, you know, frontier market in terms of economic standpoint. We have not done that. There are millions, and I mean 5 million people in our country who some you know, just forget the 5 million people. Think about the quantum of students we graduate every year since 2003. Some have not realized their dream yet. Every regime after regime, they see politics, they see corruption in our country. There was a complete divide in the last going election, a split. This president won by a split, like literally few votes. What does that tell you? There is a complete divide in terms of what they believe the country direction the country should be going. Right? I say this to say that you can look at Tubman, who ruled for 27 years. Most people believe, I don't believe, so most people believe he was the best president in the history of the country. I don't believe that. I think he was a semi despot um, who stoked fear in people. The way he ran the country, again, is the same way we're running the country. Few people are benefiting, and the rest of the people are struggling. When I mean abject poverty is what is in Liberia. Don't get fooled by what you see on social media. You leave Monrovia, go to those areas, you see abject poverty for 27 years. The only good thing was we've had the $1 to $1 peg, and that was on fluff because we're getting too much aid. Let me continue the point that I'm trying to make. From there, his predecessor took over, who had a complete direction, a different direction from what he wanted to. Yes, I think sometimes people get the hubris of not being able to manage what we call virtue versus vice, cause him his demise, right? From there we came to Taylor. We had the war, and then we came to Taylor. Nothing happened. The same thing under Ellen. Ellen had the best opportunity to transform that country post-war. Yes, she took all these fluff people with degrees and put them in places, and they couldn't do nothing. Some of them would see rain recycle here, right? I say this to say that until if we do not make some drastic change to the point where the average Liberian can come up in our country and self-actualize because of some level of economic activity at their disposal, where they feel like if I go to school, if I put in the work, I can have a better life in this country. We could repeat what happened in as much as we don't want it. I think sometimes people get so irrational that they don't see the consequences of their action. We are repeating the same mistake we've been making throughout that led up into these uprising in the country. This is the same path we're on here. We come here, we celebrate. We come here, we celebrate. We come here, you celebrate. You can call phone. You have families in Liberia. Call them and hear what they talk about the country. It is tough, right? If we do not do something drastic, this cannot continue in perpetuity, right? Sierra Leone next door, we're pitching ourselves against Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone has taken off. They've taken off, except for us. They're taking off. They just started their own airline. Well, what we can barely pass a budget that invests in people. I say this to say that if nobody realizes this and see the historical trend and see that we're in a perpetual cycle that is continue when it continues to continue, You continue to blow air in a balloon. At the moment it flops, it pops open. We might run ourselves into the same scenario. And it's a hard thing to say, or it's a hard pill to swallow, but we are on that same trajectory. We're accumulating debt right now at 2.5 billion. Our GDP is 4.5. Let's say I will put it to 5 billion, 50% debt to GDP. We're servicing debt $137 million per year. Well, we can barely pull 100 million into education or healthcare. So you see how that is, our action is taking us away from investing in the basic infrastructure and services that's supposed to, even if you don't have that economic mobility, the government is taking care of you. If you get sick, you can get taken care of, right? Those things are not there. Or you to get a better quality education, that if you get educated there, I can go to another African country to go work. You cannot get a degree in Liberia and go to another neighboring country and say you're going to make it. It's going to be tough. Unless you come to America, right? That is
no
the
guarantee
point
you're
that
going to work in America either.
Exactly.
From
I
Liberia.
see people I know a lot of people who work in the government top level, and they come here to become paper and pen pushers, right? To the point like they can't even function, right? So the point that I'm making here is that, and I'll continue to say that, and every time I say, people say, oh, the budget is a law. Until you do that, you can't change it. We are repeating ourselves in a cycle. And nobody does anything. Someone is going to. The people are going to get tired eventually. So that's the point that I'm trying to make here.
Yeah, the people can get tired, but we shouldn't go back to war. War is not an option.
I'm not saying war. I'm saying it's going to be
uprising, whatever shape it.
Something's going to happen.
Whatever shape it takes, it shouldn't cause the kind of war, because the war actually did throw us back 500 plus years now. This is what we still grappling with, right? We can have a show about Tottenham another time, right? I mean, there's not one way to analyze the Tottenham regime, because it's multifaceted. If you think about what he met versus where he left Liberia, Tottenham is the modern. I mean, take aside his political whatever the excesses that he had. He's the modern. And it's not in figurative term, right? He actually is the modern father of Liberia, the modern father of Liberia, because what Tottenham inherited at the time was nothing. The Liberia that you see today was nothing compared to what Tottenham met, right? And the reason, and to understand Tottenham, and I'll probably put it in my book when I retire, maybe, but to understand Tottenham and his mentality about Liberia, you have to go back to the E.J. Roy scenario. Because if you don't understand what happened with the Roy issue, you will not understand Tottenham. And you will not understand why he was ruthless with his political opponent, like the way he was.
No, I know what happened to Roy.
Yeah, and that's the excesses. But the question at the end of the day was still the question that was confronting Liberia in 1871 at the end of the day was, how do we develop this country? Right? How do we put this country together in a way that is developed for us, whoever us was at the time, right? How do we put this country together? One group of people said, listen, we don't want outsider here. We came here, we're quiet, we're building our country. We don't want foreign interference and Another group of people, that's what one group of people said. Another group of people said, look, listen, and listen, this country, we can't develop this country just by this small group of people. Yeah, we don't have enough capital to develop this country.
Correct.
We have to invite people here with foreign capital so that we can open this country up and develop this place. And that's what the second school of thought, that was Roy's school of thought, right? Roy was the original father of what became the open door policy. What he was arguing was open door policy at the time. That's what Roy said. Unfortunately for him, he did not meet that end. But Tottenham was a student of Roy. And so whatever you saw him doing was like exact copy from 1871, what the arguments were. Because the question was again posed at the time, right? How do we develop this country? How do we make it open for people to come here and we can give our people jobs so that our people how do we harness the actual labor prowess of our people? How do we do that? You need mass production, you need mass employment, and Firestone was one. And so when Firestone came, he took the opportunity. And during Tottenham time, if you look at it, yeah, he have his excesses. Again, you can criticize him from whatever point. I'm not yet arguing for him. But when you look at what he was doing at the time, Nkrumah then used to come to Liberia to study, to have a blueprint to study Liberia, what we're doing in terms of a light manufacturing on Tottenham. Nkrumah spent a week in Liberia in the 50s just studying. We spent some time with the old man and how he went back. You know,
no,
so
you are true. It's true what you're saying, Pressy. The thing that Tubman met, it was worse than a village. The whole, I thought
yes,
about
it was a village. It was not. It was nothing was here.
It was a village.
Absolutely
no water,
nothing.
hardly any electricity, no telephone,
None.
no roads, hardly any roads. Just a dirt road, dirt road, small dirt road. That was it. That was Liberia, the capital city. Dirt road, no electricity, no pipe run, born at water, nothing. And to bring up that development, he did do pretty well. You're right. And he Roy ran into a debt problem. I think the loan he took was his Waterloo, because he hardly got any of the cash that he borrowed, and then he had to pay it back.
No, I mean, we don't go on talking, but the guys did not give him chance, Jimmy. The guy did not give Roy chance. Roy, people were fired left and right. There was this guy in the Senate that got expelled. His vice president was facing impeachment before Roy even died for something that he had gone inside. No, Roy people were not even allowed to take office in Maryland. They were fighting it all over the place. So he didn't even have the chance to settle down, let alone talk about the loan. The loan is a whole different thing, right? You read the story and you only hear Joseph Jingi component of it. You don't hear the voices of John Lewis, these guys who were actual people there. You don't hear you read the American cable. Roy, the Roy only crime was, even the Liberian government talking to court, Roy only crime was, Jimmy, was he co-mingled his personal money with the government money. So
Yes.
he didn't know the difference. That was the only crime. And that's why you saw his son did not get, his son Edward Farrell Roy did not get, he got exonerated. Because he was on trial just like his dad. Before his dad, he went to court and he got exonerated. Roy's son got exonerated. Why? Because there was no crime. There was no, like, Bro couldn't prove the case that they had against Roy in her own court, let alone in England. So we have to step back. I know that's another story for another day, but
No, I like the
when we talk about these things, we should put it into perspective. Yes, Todman was ruthless, and the reason he was ruthless was because he didn't want to end up like Roy, who he has studied. And it will interest you to know the people that Todman went after, the people were in that coup on Roy, as David Como. Como Pa was an espionage person upriver who stopped Roy people and then for coming down the river there to come defend him. The president Como that became president later on. He was an espionage before that in the Roy saga, right? Dumba that shot Todd in the theater. Dumba is a scion of Charles Benedict Dunbar, one of the guys that took over after they took Roy from office. So you should read history, you should understand these things, right? Todman was ruthless with these guys. Wait, let me just make a point. Todman was ruthless with these guys because the ancestor had a hand in Roy's death. So he said, no, you're not going to do me like this. That's a reason why you see he did not do anything to Barclay. There's a reason you see he did not do anything to my cousin. What's his name? As Raymond Horace, he did not do anything to but my family's grandfather because he knew these people who they were. You know what I mean? So they were not part of those things then. So he was very, very cognizant about that. But he went after the people that was actually involved with Roy.
So
go ahead.
Here's a point that I'm trying to make here. So if you consider Todman as the modern father of Liberia, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is great, and I will hope that the entire country sees him that way. You know why it is? I say that because if you go to Ghana, the reference and the Reverend Kwame Nkrumah. There's a whole museum there for him. You go there, all his books and everything that he was able to do across. Matter of fact, everything that he was able to do as a president is in that. You can go there and learn about it. If what you're saying is true, and let's say most Liberians share that same sentiment, it's not whether we share that same sentiment. The point here is that people should be able to learn from those people to say, okay, if this person had this kind of open door policy and thought in terms of developing and changing Liberia, since then, since 1971, I think he was killed in 1971.
He
Who
died in
beside Todman,
1971.
beside Tarbert, when Tarbert took over, I think Tarbert. The reason why I think Tarbert, I like Tarbert's policy because he was bold with them. They were more industrial, like friendly in terms of he wanted to industrialize the country. Besides those two, there hasn't been any president who has similar agenda to say these are things that the direction the country wanted to go in. Unfortunately, we weren't able to go there. But somebody to adopt the kind of agenda to say, let's take this country to what Mr. Todman wanted to take it, or let's take this country to what Todman wanted to do to industrialize it. If the closest person that said that, and I think she just said it because maybe she had admiration for him, was Ellen. She talked about Todman, how well she liked his policy, but in essence, she was contrary. Everything she did was contrary to what he was, right? No one, the point that I'm trying to make here, no one has been trying. You cannot go anywhere, Jimmy or Mr. Harris, without industrializing. You can't go anywhere without industrializing.
I agree, but who have we had? Who have we had
one.
after Togo? We had dual. Okay,
No one.
That was military rule. Half the other half was went through some kind of political upheaval before. Then you had who after dual? Well, Taylor.
Yeah.
I don't know those years. I was far from Liberia those years, but I think Taylor.
I mean, at Taylor, there were people in between, but then Taylor eventually,
Yeah. So you haven't had enough peace and tranquility to converge, to change Liberia, because Taylor was dealing with a whole lot of stuff, which he didn't have to once he had, but he was. He wasn't, and he wasn't. His place was, his head was not in the right place. I think now. And you want to talk about Ellen? Ellen was trying to revive a failed state. So that she had 12 years. Yeah, she might have done better. But remember, she brought Liberia from almost nothingness to somewhere, and maybe got off track. But she did do something. And then we talk about we are just trying to stabilize. He was just a popular president, not a visionary. And now we in the Bwaka year. So there hasn't been that many people yet. I mean, now we should expect to see something. I think it should start with Bwaka.
For me, it's not about the people. It's about the national conversation, right? We don't have national conversation. I just referenced to you. There were inflection points in Liberia history where the leadership and the people had to grapple with stuff. One was in 1869. That election was pivotal. They were asking the question, what do we do with this country? How do we develop it? There was a national conversation being had. People were on this side, people were on the other side. And the people went to election and they voted on that particular national conversation.
Why aren't we having that same conversation today?
Everybody said, but everybody said, let me tell you something. Everybody said, and said, listen, the progressive. Listen, I like what the progressive did. I think the old order was corrupted. Like, it was old. They didn't want to change. There were people in there that didn't want to change, even though guys that Toba were trying to change, but the other people that didn't want the system to change. And so you needed something, because there was no avenue to enter. There was absolutely no legitimate avenue to enter politics in Liberia on those circumstances. So something had to buckle, something had to give way for those things to happen. And so that's where the progressive came in. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's where the progressive came in, and for what it is, right? But the progressive does not have a history. People forget. People don't know the actors in Liberia history. Bacchus Matthew is the grandson of James Springs Spain. James Springs was defeated by the True Whig Party in 1869. He came back after the kill Roy. He became president. He was impeached again by a True Whig Party legislature. Bacchus then learned that story down the line. There was something there that was driving Bacchus. It was not just because he wanted to be a progressive. You have to dig deeper to understand these historical trends. Right, but again, that was an inflection point, right? That question was asked, and the question was asked again during the King administration, right? King then was beholden to the open door, but unfortunately, he did not he got moved prematurely, and then Barkley came, and then Barkley led Todman into that. And then at Todman time again, there was this same question. So we don't have national conversation. The people that are leading our political experiment now, they are not well versed in the country's history.
And that is the problem. Thank you for saying
they're
that.
not
That is
well
the
versed in the
problem
country.
that I'm
Like, bro, it's too
That
old
is
for people to not
exactly
know.
what
You
I'm
can't.
saying.
You even the old man Boaga don't even
If-
know much about the country that he leads. Let alone
If
understand
you-
it.
If you read up that much, I read up that much, Jimmy knows that much. Imagine you wanting to take power without even knowing the history. That there's a president that said it, Winston Churchill. He said the further back you look, the better ahead you can see. Right? In order to have a better future of yourself, to know exactly where you want to go, you have to look at the historical context that got you to where you are today. So if someone is in power today or wants to be in power today, but they have not a iota of a knowledge of what the challenges were, what from an economic standpoint, we can talk about politics, but what do Liberians want? Where do we want to take this country? If they don't understand that aspect, they're not having that conversation, and they don't form as a fundamental ideology conviction that this is economically, this is what we want to take this country. You then become just another, I keep saying that, paper and pen pusher, or you just get elected senator or honorable, people call you honorable, but you have no vision or nothing to what to do. And this is where we're headed today. We have all these people sitting in the office, in government in Liberia. They have, from the Minister of Finance to any representative or senator you want to point out, they're just glory. They have, like you said, they have no idea what the country been. They have no idea where they want to take this country. So they remain in this quagmire that is just centered around them and themselves, and they forget about the people that got them in there. That is the point that I'm trying to make here.
I agree with you on that.
I mean, you know, good point. But Gabriel, it's about 5:02 now.
Right.
Yeah, we need to get you need to give more time
we gotta
because
wrap things up.
we don't count every day. They need to give us time on FOL. What going on here?
We got to wrap up.
We just got to wrap up
anyway,
now. No,
that's the point that I'm trying to make here. And the budget that we're talking about, I think we went off tangent a little bit, reflects that continuity of lack of vision. You see the budget, you see the continuity of unintentional. A country that is unintentional about where it wants to go, a country that is unintentional about the kind of services that it want to provide to its people, a country that's unintentional about that's not intentional about its own future. You know, their best asset in either a country or any company are the people. If you don't invest in your people, you are failing yourself, because at the end of the day, you need perpetuity. Continuity. The people will continue to carry that country forward. And if you're not educating them to do that, you're not investing in their future, you're setting yourself up for failure. And that's what we're doing with this continuity of this budget that we'll continue to see here. This is why I think something drastic needs to happen to make it people-centric. But I rest my case on that.
Look, my people, the thing I always tell you here, the budget is not there for you to develop. Now I'm speaking people again. I'm talking the Liberian. They budget. They think the people do here. They think you see behind me. They think it's not for you and your children here. They think it's not meant for you to be better people tomorrow. They think for the people in Monrovia, what can come to you every 2 years, 6 years, 9 years, whatever amount of year, and can't say they won't go represent you. That they think for them because the money not inside that they can eat, that they can use to be bishop on you. They think nothing inside for you. And then our women work for, and our job we are for. It started all the way back in the day. So they think ain't get absolutely nothing inside for you and your children. They think they're gonna give you hospital for your when you get sick. You're not gonna give you hospital. You're not gonna train your daughter or your son to become nurse and doctor. None of the things ain't gonna happen for you because the budget is not for you. It's absolutely nothing in it here for you. Don't mind anything anybody say. The budget is not crafted for your behalf. It's not crafted for your well-being. Absolutely nothing. It's for the people in Monrovia. Only people in Monrovia can enjoy the budget here. And by people in Monrovia, I mean the people in government and the people who hang around and they're their friend. My friend and too. There's someone named my friend and too. But that's what the budget is for. Enough for you. You get nothing to do with it here. You will not see road coming to your town anytime soon with the budget. You will not see water hand pump in your town. Forget about running water there. Hand pump, they will not dig it for you. You will not see it anytime soon. Don't waste your time. The particular thing here, the people talking so They think what they say that budget. Now the B need to give it ain't for you. You get nothing to do with it. Your Nina rating inside A. Your children Nina rating inside A. The people just take the money, they eat it, then they did it there with you. Then you don't want to pay now. The cassava farm you making, the red farm you making, your children, you got to sell that thing and then you pay the money. What the people then eat that A your own there. So yeah, that A there. Nothing inside for you. I'm speaking people here. A. I'm my own there. A. I finish talking. Every year I can come here and tell the same thing.
Correct.
Nothing inside. Next year I will be here again. I'll tell you the same thing here again. Nothing will be inside for you. Absolutely nothing. I rest my case.
I like that closing. I ain't got nothing to say beside that. Except that
he spoke for two.
one
I
thing
guess he spoke
go
for
ahead,
two.
Gabe.
No, I guess he spoke for two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, as we always say, with our closing song,
yeah,
wherever you be, we are still all Liberians. All right. So good night, and we'll see you later.
See you next Saturday.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. Liberia.